Well, hello, everyone, and welcome here to Bedford. Nick Anastas along with Steve Beals. It's FNL Rewind here from the Beals Insurance Studios. We're glad you could join us over the next hour. It's all the football you can handle, at least at the NHIAA level. Roger Brown of the New Hampshire Union Leader and of the New Hampshire Football Report will join us in about 10 or 15 minutes or so. And then, of course, we catch up with Jimmy Lozon as well. Second time Coach Lozon of Londonderry has been on the program. Obviously, a big win for the Lancers. They remain unbeaten in D1 after crushing Bedford 35-0 in a battle of unbeatens back on Friday. Nashua North, of course, they won as well. So it's Londonderry and North, the two lone unbeatens through 6 weeks. We'll also take a look around the scoreboard, touch on some D2 action as well. But Steve Beals, we begin, of course, with the game of the week. We had the broadcast. It's on our YouTube channel as well if you want to check that out. Big crowd in Bedford, the defending champs, hosting Londonderry in a battle of 1-2, so to speak. And, well, there's no question who the top team in everybody's poll is if they weren't already. Londonderry, with a running clock, able to shut out the Bulldogs on the road for their 6th win of the year.
Yeah, midseason, if you're looking for differentiation on Friday night, you certainly found it. No question about that, Nick. I think we were looking at it could go any way going into that game, and I think that we also thought that if Londonderry was going to prove ahead, it might be a 7 to 3 to right down to the wire. And, Bedford did move the ball down the field very quickly. Looked like they were going to go in for a touchdown. And then all of a sudden they coughed up the ball, and It was just Londonderry till right to the end of the game. I mean, if you had ever told me, put the odds on a running clock at the end of that game, I would have taken some some serious odds against that happening.
Right. And, of course, turnovers at any level can be such a momentum killer. And credit Londonderry, too. They just seemed like they were the team ready to play. We know how explosive that offense can be. You were impressed once again with Jake McEachern, the quarterback. He can make both plays with both legs and his arms, and quite a cast of characters around him, including Cole Keegan, the wide receiver who had 3 touchdowns. He drew some oohs and ahs from that crowd for sure.
Yeah, I never saw Londonderry. They played great in every game. They played a tough team in Bedford, and they just took care of business in all 3 phases of the game. The game plan that Coach Lozon came out with was clearly filled with a lot of film review, a lot of study, and then taking that study and creating it on the practice field during the week. There's no question that had to happen, because when they came out, if you looked at from the line, all 3 phases of the game, to the running backs, the receivers, the timing of the quarterback, just fantastic on offense. But the thing that really stood out to me is the study on defense was amazing. I mean, Londonderry's linebackers and defensive backs were running to the ball almost immediately when the ball was snapped. It's almost like so it's so hard with a limited amount of time that you have with a high school coaching staff to get that much information to their players. It speaks well of the staff, and it speaks extremely well of the players as well, of the Londonderry Lancers.
Yeah, you mentioned the influence from the sideline, Coach Lozon, who's been on record saying that perhaps this is his most talented group, is going to join us, and we'll explore that dynamic with him a little bit further. You mentioned the defense, pick 6 in the second half for Alex Setzelis. He's a great two-way star, obviously, on the outside, and it just seemed like in all 3 phases of the game, things were clicking and clearly favoring Londonderry. And Bedford, we know that they're going to bounce back, but this may be a wake-up call after winning 17 straight, dating back nearly 2 calendar years to November of 2017, their first loss in nearly 2 years. We'll see how they respond under first-year head coach Zach Matthews, but clearly still a lot of talent, and the Bulldogs are going to be okay.
Yeah, I think that the areas where I saw the greatest difference was the receivers and the quarterback of the Lancers just outperformed. And the game plan obviously outperformed Bedford. For Bedford's sake, though, if you're Coach Matthews, you really want to take this sort of a hit early like this in the season, so you have time to adjust. And every single game, you now can go out and remind them what happens when you play at your top level versus something short of that. And I'm sure that he will be doing that. But Bedford's got to go back to that film, and there's a lot of work to be done, and it's going to be very interesting. That it doesn't get any well. It's not easy for them next week. Let's put it that way. With Salem, we saw them. They're a very physical team, Nick. They're going to come. They're going to bring it. Nice coaching staff, a good group of kids. Bedford really needs to differentiate themselves now. If they're not going to beat Londonderry, they got to come back strong and play a solid game, or then things get a little bit different. I don't know. Pinkerton won again last week. Going to be interesting to see what happens there as well. They're going to play each other. So Exeter won big. You're going to go over those scores, I know. But, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there in a moment. We'll revisit this in a few minutes with Roger Brown of the New Hampshire Football Report as well. But just to close out our game of the week between Londonderry and Bedford, gone here, Steve, 5-10 minutes? Haven't mentioned Jeff Wiedenfeld's name yet, which is obviously unusual.
I was going to comment on that.
The star senior also was obviously influential on Friday night. He had over 100 yards once again on the ground.
Yeah, but they were keying on him and to a great degree, and McEachern threw some passes, Nick, that were really great, and his receivers, when they had some heavy, some extended leads, they were able to run the ball down and get their hands stretched out and make a couple touchdowns. I mean, some of the penalties that Londonderry get, it could have been more. To be honest with you, because they got two touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken, Nick brought back due to some penalties, and I haven't seen any team so far that look quite as tight as that. I think we saw a glimpse of it against Salem, Nick, when they wore them down. I think that was 42-24 or something like that.
Yep.
But you kind of figured
26.
Yeah, you kind of figured that because the quarterback of Salem got knocked out of the game, so you said, okay. They're that good, and you had commented in the game we did down in Haverhill with Salem and Londonderry how the passing game of Londonderry really opened up, and you could see the talent that they had, and we saw them. And this isn't just about Wiedenfeld. This kid's fantastic, Wiedenfeld. He's got some serious weapons, but you gotta cook that soup, and you gotta make it all work. And right now, there's just a real good connection between the quarterback and the offensive coordination right now with Londonderry, and that's critical. If they go healthy, it's theirs to lose.
Let's move on to Salem. They get another win, as you mentioned, 17-7. The Jaguars gave them a fight, but in the end, Salem able to secure their fourth straight win. They haven't lost since you and I took a trip down to Haverhill in week 2 for that Londonderry matchup. They are now 5-1. And, Steve, over the last 4 games, they have allowed a combined 7 points. That includes, obviously, 3 shutouts. So that defense is humming, quarterback or not, on the other side under center. That defense is physical and obviously accomplished at this point. And, the Bulldogs are going to have to recover quickly, very quickly, because Salem is coming, and obviously there's a target on Bedford's back each and every week as the defending champ.
Correct. And the thing about Salem is the physical presence that they have on their defensive line was just really, really impressive to me against Londonderry. They stood up to Londonderry for a long time, but remember, Salem couldn't keep the ball, so Salem's defense was on the field pretty much 80% of the time. That's probably not going to be the case. They've had an opportunity to adjust that. They were missing their first 2 quarterbacks. Their third-string quarterback went in. Sounds like last night with Pittsburgh, right? And they won. Salem's going to be better on the offensive side of the ball than the second half of what we saw in Londonderry. So I don't know. I don't know how to pick that game, but the question's going to be, I think, on Sunday morning, who is Bedford? You're going to find out to a great degree who they are after the Salem game. Was this a fluke, or was this something that's systemic?
Pinkerton, they win 28-0 over Timberlane. They bounce back from a 12-0 defeat against Salem and are now back at 500 at 3-3. They will take on Concord this week. Oh, by the way, Londonderry Goffstown, that's coming up as well, as Londonderry looks to make it 7 in a row. And speaking of the Grizzlies, they were in action against Manchester Central, and they squeak out a 1-point win.
Yeah, I'd like to see that video.
13-12 over the Little Green. Goffstown quietly at 5-1. Their only blemish was to Bedford. They blowout loss back in week number 3. So Goffstown and Londonderry, and this is the time of year, the back third, so to speak, of the schedule, where some of these matchups start to become very big in terms of playoff implication. And everybody in the world is going to be picking against Goffstown, but maybe this young Grizz group could shock the state.
Yeah.
Obviously, with a win over Londonderry this weekend.
My understanding is they're a year away. They have some excellent underclassmen on this program that are coming up through the system, and there's no question in my mind that coach from Goffstown, Huft, is one of the best in the business. This guy knows his stuff. I think that Goffstown just is struggling with some of the upperclassmen. I don't want to say talent and physicality that can match up against Londonderry. But one thing for sure is you give Coach Huff some what he needs, and he's going to get it done, and he's proven that throughout the years. So the two teams that I just want to quick mention to, is I just give so much credit to Wyndham. The fact that they've come up Division I, they're half the size of most of these Division I schools,
right,
and they're competing. And I just can't say enough about the town of Wyndham and the willingness to come up and play D1 football. And they're playing against teams. They're losing a few games. They're winning some games, but they're in there.
Competitive.
And they're competitive. Other than the first game of the year with a new coaching staff and everything else and playing Bedford, you got to give them credit. And I just I think that's admirable what they're trying to do. The other, as it relates to, like, I don't want to say, you never want to call Pinkerton a dark horse, but Coach O'Reilly he loves to kind of be laying on the side and then just watch what happens the second half of the year. They just beat Timberlane soundly, which you expected them to win fairly well, but they shut them out. Coach O'Reilly's able, in most cases, to be able to get his teams rolling at the right time. And their offense, remember weather now. Weather is going to begin to decline. And as weather declines, Coach O'Reilly's offense in second half of October and November is, generally speaking, in most years, able to continue to progress. I think the same thing could be argued about Salem, too. So I think those two programs are going to get better because they like to pound the ball. They got a lot of security. They take a lot of time off the clocks. And the spread on grass fields and in bad weather, bad cold weather with young football players can sometimes have a challenge. But if it's a warm streak in the lady, it doesn't affect you so much. But let's watch the weather patterns and watch each week how Pinkerton comes along.
Concord, they've won 2 in a row. They will challenge the Astros on Friday night in Derry. And that's a program, of course, that started at 0-4. So a couple of wins for Concord. Pinkerton coming off the shutout. Concord beat Memorial, by the way, in Week 6, 22-7. We mentioned Nashua North at the top of the show. Yeah. No problem with crosstown rival Bishop Girton. 35-0 the final there. Titans still unbeaten at 6-0. BG catches just their, I thought it was their second loss. Right? They beat Merrimack. Not according to the NHIAA website. It looks like Merrimack won 35-19.
Yes, that's how I understood it.
So Merrimack won that game in Week 5.
That's my. They have that mixed up there.
I think they do.
Yeah.
Either way, Week 6 again. BG falls 35-0. They'll try and get back on the horse in Week 7 at home against Winnicott. That game is on Friday night. Oh no, Saturday night.
Winnicott seems to be really struggling this year, Nick. They just we saw Nashua North, our first game of the year, just take them over. And for the most part, they've been struggling ever since. So
North will be at Keene. The Blackbirds are a big dog there. And South, they come off a 19-0 win over the aforementioned Winnicott Warriors. South is above 500 again at what, 4-3?
Yeah,
or 4-2.
Other than Exeter, Nashua North really, they're there's no question they're a good football team, and I would not count them out. But we don't have the matchups that's needed to see. How good they really are against a Salem, a Bedford.
Well, they beat Exeter.
And I was just going to say they beat Exeter, but 31-28.
Yep.
Tight game, but so they're a good, solid football team. And this kid, Curtis Harris, is something to watch, and he's got a good cast of characters. Good players working around him, and. Everything seems to be working very well for them. What they need to do is to face some tough competition.
Right.
And I think it's important that they get a good draw in the first round to get things rolling.
Speaking of Exeter, They beat Spalding 41-6.
Yeah.
Red Raiders drop back to 2-4 on the season. And Dover, they get their second win of the year.
Good for
over
them.
Portsmouth, 17-7. The Clippers next in action at Merrimack. Well, Dover will travel down to face Exeter. All right, we will step aside. Roger Brown is waiting in the wings. You know Roger, double duty, head man over there at the New Hampshire Union Leader, also founder of the New Hampshire Football Report. He's on to talk about Week 6 and preview Week 7. So
he was there, so I love to hear his analysis.
Yeah, he was in Bedford for sure for that battle on Friday night. I guess we'll start there with Roger Brown in about 60 seconds here on FNL Rewind. It's presented by Beals Insurance. Back here at the Beals Insurance Studios, Nick Anastas, Steve Beals, Roger Brown now joining us on FNL Rewind. Roger, of course, from the New Hampshire Union Leader and founder of the New Hampshire Football Report, nhfootballreport.com. Roger, we appreciate it. How you doing this Monday?
Very well, guys. Thanks for having me on.
We appreciate it. Your initial thoughts coming away from that 35-0 Londonderry win were what, Roger?
Just reinforced how good I thought Londonderry really is. Never expected that type of score. You know, as you saw, Nick, it was 35-0, and it was early in the third, 35-0. I really thought Bedford would make it more competitive. I thought they had enough athletes to make it a little tougher on the Londonderry offense, and I figured they'd move it a little more than they did. But you know, Londonderry was just far, far superior.
What about the idea that one team maybe was ready to play and that the other team wasn't? Are you a big believer in that, or was this just more of a gap in talent between the two teams? If they could do it over, you think Bedford would be a little bit more ready to play, for lack of a better term?
I don't know. You know, I saw Bedford's first possession. You know, they had the ball first in the game, and I really thought they were moving it pretty well. Their offensive line was, you know, I wouldn't say dominating, but certainly providing plenty of running room. And I don't know how far they got. They got somewhere around the 20-yard line before they fumbled. So it seemed like Bedford came out ready to go, and you know, emotionally they were into it. But that Londonderry offense can just grab the momentum and keep it. They have so many weapons, both at the receiver position, the running back position. Quarterback is very good, and I know it's not all that sexy, but their offensive line looked really, really strong to me. You Bedford's got some big boys up front of that defensive line, but there was plenty of running room all night for the Londonderry backs. So, it really does all start up front, and Londonderry just seems to have the whole package on offense.
Roger, Steve Eels here. Thanks again for coming on. I appreciate it. The quick question, one of the things I noticed in the opening of the game is that, as you said, they were just destroying the right tackle, down blocking him, and Bedford was able to pretty much have its way running down the field. And then that untimely fumble was just so important part of the game when you look back at it, because Bedford really needed that 7 points, as it turned out, to get any kind of momentum. But one of the things that I noticed was immediately the next series on defense, they tried it again, and Coach Lozon shut it down with bringing up a linebacker, moving him outside, putting him up, and then running the cornerbacks a little bit tighter to be able to read. One of the things that has amazed me about Coach Lozon as I watch him is how he doesn't wait till the end of a quarter to make adjustments. Something's going on really good there in the sidelines. Are you seeing that? I know it's kind of a loaded question, but that's what I'm seeing. They seem to be making adjustments during the first and second quarter to tighten up their advantage and put themselves in a position to win. That's what I saw. What did you see?
Well, yeah, you got to make adjustments on the fly. Sometimes you wait till halftime or the end of a quarter. It's too late, in certain games. I did see them blitzing quite a bit. And what I also saw was Bedford really not making Londonderry go away from that defensive strategy. They didn't I don't remember many passes of more than 10 yards that they even attempted. It was a pretty vanilla offensive game plan, I thought. And when you're down 35-0, I understand it, but early in the game it was still a lot of just handoffs, running between the tackles, and Bedford certainly got enough athletes to spread out the defense a little more than Londonderry was. They were, like you said, they were just kind of playing the run with some extra guys, and that wasn't working. So,
yeah.
But to your point, credit to the Londonderry coaching staff for correcting that on the fly. That's what you got to do as a good head coach.
The quarterback situation in the league, obviously Curtis Harris brings tremendous physical tangibles as well as some intangibles to the game. He's just incredible. Still think he's learning the quarterback position, and Dante's doing a good job with him. But the two quarterbacks that stand out with me that Nick and I have talked about is McEachern, as well as Gravas from, how do you pronounce it, from Exeter? I always do that wrong. But anyway, those... Yeah, Grijalva. The
it's a tough one.
The related I don't mean any disrespect, of course, but the relationship that Coach Ball has with him, and then which Coach Lozon has with McEachern, has been really interesting to watch. These guys, to me, are the quarterbacks that, to me, at least in Division I, seem to really stand out as far as their ability to make good decisions and are able to check off passes. Do you see them as kind of the best in the business right now, given the fact that Salem's quarterback is out of the picture?
Well, the McEachern kid from Londonderry has totally impressed me.
Yeah.
Especially since it's his first year as a starter.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like he's, third-year senior. Now, that said, he's got a bunch of weapons that helps him out, but he's certainly doing his part in that offense. Nothing. You can say nothing but good things about him. And of course, these two quarterbacks, it's a long ways away, but they could meet in the championship game.
Yes.
It's possible.
Yes.
The Grijalva kid, I thought, looked a little overwhelmed last year when he got thrust into the starting job.
Mm-hmm.
Early in the year. He didn't begin the year as their starting quarterback, but game 3 or 4, I think for a variety of reasons, he took over, and he didn't look ready to me. Now, granted, it wasn't a great Exeter team last year that he was playing on,
right.
But this year, totally different player. He was part of the basketball team that won the state title, so I'm sure he came in with a lot more confidence his second year running the show. And, typically when Exeter has a kid who is not just can throw, but is good at passing the football, they can be particularly dangerous.
Yeah, with the play action. Yeah, because they run the ball so well. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when they a lot of teams will just kind of stack up against the run, and Exeter will try a couple passes, but when they've got a kid who can really throw it, which this kid can, you've got to think about your game plan long and hard before you play Exeter. That's going to be that's going to provide problems for teams in the playoffs, no question.
Last question. What do you think about the Bedford-Salem game? What do you think about what are your predictions on that and also who's the Cinderella team or who's the team behind the scenes that you see that nobody's talking about but you better watch out for?
You're talking Division I?
Yes, sir.
Boy, that's a tough one. I don't really. I can't give you a dark horse. I'd like to, but I just see it as North and Exeter on one side and Salem and Londonderry on the other. I think Salem will handle Bedford this weekend. If there was a team that was going to pull off an upset, I would lean towards Goffstown because I'm sure Coach Huff will come up with a good game plan, whoever he's playing in the postseason.
Outstanding, Coach. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know that they have the horses to match up with a Londonderry or, maybe even a Salem.
What about Pinkerton?
I just don't think Pinkerton's going to get in. They got a tough road now.
Yes.
So I don't see them as a playoff team. I can't figure out a way where they're going to. I guess if Goffstown ends up winning their conference, and Pinkerton beats Bedford and wins out the rest of the way, they could get in. But that's really the only scenario I see. So it's possible, but a lot of things have to go in their favor.
Yeah. Roger Brown, again, the New Hampshire Union leader and the founder of the New Hampshire Football Report, joining us. You teased it a little bit there, Roger, when Steve asked who the dark horse team is, and you said in D1. How about in D2? Because there's a lot of parity, a lot of good teams both in the North and the South Conference. How do you size up D2 as a whole 6 weeks into the season?
Boy, that's an interesting conference. Let me tell you, there's six, or interesting division, I should say. There's six very good teams just in the South Conference, and at least one of them's not going to get in. You might have like a Hollis Brookline that doesn't make the postseason. There's really, the team that really is impressive is Pelham, because it seems like in a conference where a lot of teams can score, they play terrific defense, and they play terrific defense against very good teams. And I mean, like Milford, they held Sauhegan to 2 touchdowns in regulation, one of which came with like a minute left. So, Pelham would be a team I wouldn't want to face
Physical.
in the postseason.
Yeah, Pelham at 4-2, part of a jumbled standings in the South. Milford and Malvern tied at the top at 5-1. Then the aforementioned Pythons at 4-2, along with Sauhegan and Hollis Brookline in the North. Bow, the only unbeaten, at 6-0. Kennett at 5-1. Plymouth at 4-2. Some usual suspects there. All right, Roger, where are you going to be this weekend, and how can people follow you on social media?
Friday night, I'm in Manchester for the Central Memorial Clash. And then Saturday, I'm going to be at Bedford Salem. That game was moved from Friday to Saturday at 2 o'clock. So I'm going to head to down to Haverhill, Mass. and see that game.
Well, that may have just thrown a wrench in our plans, Steve and Roger, as we're trying to figure out the game of the week broadcast.
Oh, it just made my heart sink, Roger. I'm gone. Oh, boy.
But we will figure something out either way. There's plenty of other games to cover.
How come they moved that, Roger? Do you know?
I don't know. I think it's probably the availability of
the field
of that Trinity Stadium in Haverhill.
Yeah.
That's just a guess, though. I just got a email from Coach Pike last night saying that they had moved the game to Saturday, and I know they were earlier in the year they were having some trouble with Triple E down there, and they were trying to avoid night games. I don't know if that's still the case. They got multiple teams using that facility, so. But I just know it's 2 o'clock on Saturday.
Okay.
Good stuff, Roger, as usual. We'll catch up in a few weeks. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Roger.
Okay, guys. Good talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you. That, again, is Roger Brown of the New Hampshire Football Report. When we come back, Coach Lozon is on the other side, the hottest name in coaching circles around the state. He returns to FNL Rewind in about 60 seconds. Don't go anywhere. Back here at the Beals Insurance Studios, Nick Anastas with Steve Beals. And joining us on the phone here on FNL Rewind is Londonderry head coach Jimmy Lozon. The Lancers, of course, the talk of the town, the talk of the state at 6-0 in Division I, following a big Week 6 win on the road against the defending Division I champion Bedford Bulldogs. Coach, good afternoon. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Your guys were ready to go, and seemingly it looked like Bedford was quite not there in terms of a competitive standpoint to begin that football game, at least in my opinion. How much stock do you put into the motivation side of things? I know we're dealing with teenagers, we're dealing with young student athletes, but what do you say as a coach? What does your staff say collectively to get these kids ready to go each and every week, no matter who the opponent is?
That's arguably the biggest challenge of them all, is kind of getting them to focus and prepare like it's the most important game of the season. And, as coaches, we know it's the most important game of the week, but, getting the guys to understand that, and any little bit of motivation you can find to use is important. We dangle those things right in front of them, try to get them motivated. And, our group this year, and it's not every year, but our group this year kind of has a little edge to them. They enjoy the challenge, and they enjoy playing good teams. So I found it, tougher to motivate them against teams that are struggling, and just kind of get them up for that one. But they were ready to go for Bedford, and we work hard at trying to find that motivation piece. We think that's very important.
Now, Coach, obviously you were confident in your group going into that game Friday night. Maybe you weren't surprised that they came away with the victory, but were you surprised at all at how big that victory was in terms of the lopsided nature of the final score? Did your guys pleasantly surprise you at all with how dominant they were Friday?
I know the score looked dominant. I don't feel like, when I watch the film, I don't feel like we played our best game, and I don't think we executed to the level that I would hope we would. I know our defense played with some aggression and speed, which made up for a lot of mistakes. Offensively, we have good players, and so they make coaches look good. But we just, I think we can execute better than that. And I just said that to our team today when we watched the film. I feel like we are better than what we put out there on Friday. but I was definitely surprised that the score was 35-0, and we go against those guys all summer in 7-on-7, and things got a little chippy this summer. There was a little bit of a little, I don't know, just a little bit of motivation between the two teams. They wanted to definitely beat each other, and our guys were excited. They loved that there was a winning streak on the line. They loved that they had an opportunity to kind of make another statement. And so, I just think we definitely could have played better. And I think if we played Bedford again, it probably would not be a 35-0 score. I'd imagine it would be much tighter. We expected it to be tighter.
Jimmy, Steve Beals here. Thanks so much for coming on, and wholehearted congratulations. You're very modest, but it to me that was a big win, and that was a big statement for the town of Londonderry, and it's just so great for the program. Having said that, just a little question about
Breaking up, Steve.
again.
Yeah, sorry. I heard that one. I heard that clearly. I heard it again.
Question about McEachern. This guy seems to be a very, very solid quarterback with a lot of intangible things that he just continues to show me throughout the game. Give me a little rundown about this young man and why you made him the quarterback. Be really interested in what you saw in him, because it certainly seems to be proven out right.
Yeah, and I heard that clearly. You nailed it with the intangibles, and I think that ultimately that's the most important thing of all with a quarterback is we talk about the 4 A's to playing quarterback, at least here, and number one is the ability to lead, and you have to be able to get the guys in the huddle to follow you. And I could put the worst thrower in the world at quarterback as long as he can get guys lined up, going in the right place, breaking the huddle, snapping the ball on time,
but he can't throw.
Everybody organized.
Yeah, but he can't throw.
Right.
Jake has that. He's just so calm.
Yeah.
And just that's how the guy you see on Fridays. He doesn't get overly excited. He doesn't get overly nervous. He's just that guy every single day.
Yeah.
And we break down film on the weekends. We're on the same page. He's seeing the field for the most part the same way I am, and so it's very easy to work with him. And we've kind of created a little culture of quarterbacks here, that guys that want to play quarterback. We put in a lot of work in the off season, a lot of film, a lot of whiteboard stuff, and just kind of nothing that I throw at them at this point in the season is new. They've been practicing it since April, or at least know about it. We've drawn it up, and so they're somewhat familiar with it. And my goal is to get him to play like that every single week. And it's not easy to do. Teams will start to mix up things on him, and mix up coverages, mix up blitzes, all that kind of stuff. And just to keep getting him prepared every single week is a challenge. But he puts in the work. He has all those intangibles. He can run. He can throw. He learned a lot from Evan Cormier last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you guys remember Eric Fairweather.
Oh,
of course.
I watched him the other night on film, but he's back in the lineup again. So over at St. A's, which is great to see.
So Eric works with us all summer.
Yeah.
So he had Eric here, he had Evan here, getting ready for college.
What a fine young man.
Working every morning and every afternoon, and so we have all these quarterbacks here that really trying to work hard at it and understand the game as a whole. So yeah, that definitely. At that position, we work hard here.
One of the things I saw the other night, too, was a very, very solid defense. You guys, Bedford ran down the field to the left side. They were crushing your tackle, down blocking them, and all of a sudden the defensive coaching staff made a great read on that, and then they just seemed to foil that very quickly and then never, ever look back. But one of the things that really sticks out to me, Jim, I appreciate your comments on conditioning. I watched you guys against Salem. I watched Salem come out. It was a very good football. They're a tough football team. I watched them come out and really hit you guys hard. And then as the game progressed, losing their quarterback or not, your guys just seem in tremendous condition. And by the mid-end of the third quarter, it's almost like they're better than when they started. What is it you're doing to bring to condition these guys to this level?
I got to definitely give a lot of credit to the defensive staff. They get the guys prepared. I mean, obviously we're all in those meetings, but they do a great job. And our linebackers coach, our DBs coach, defensive line coach, they do an excellent job getting them prepared, but they've been doing an excellent job for years now. It's just we finally have, so a lot of guys, a lot of good team speed, guys that are aggressive. They don't fear contact, and they're taking the coaching well.
Boy, is that important.
And they're getting on their film study, and they're taking their linebacker meeting seriously, and they understand like certain formations, certain tendencies that we're looking for. And so it's really just the group of kids that we have are just great kids, and good players make good coaches. So we've been working hard at it for a long time now. It's just we have a group that's able to execute what we're teaching them. Yeah,
what I saw out there was their hips stay square to the line, the form tackling, they're hit rapping and driving with precision, and you could see open field tackles, and they know how to make the approach and finish, and that's a credit to you and your staff. So I'm going to turn it over to Nick, but Jimmy, I want to tell you how much I'm impressed with the quality of your players, the way they behave and act in the field, the rapport that you have with them, and I congratulate you on a great win, and I just really admire you as a coach. Nick knows that. I talk about it all the time. So, and you're very modest, and that's great. But keep going at it. Great job, and best of luck throughout the rest of the year.
Thank you very much. We're just trying to get better. I'm just trying to get better. And we just have a great group of kids. They've grown with me over the last few years, and so that's definitely that rapport is strong, and we work hard at it, and it's good to have some success. We've still got hopefully a long ways to go.
I do want to ask you about two individuals who both stood out on Friday night. One, obviously, is Cole Keegan, had 3 touchdowns, very big weapon on the outside at 6'3". And the other guy, maybe that goes a little unrecognized in the trench, is the big left tackle, Blaine Hopkins. Tell me a little bit more about those two guys and how important they are to your club.
Both very important. Cole is, he's just a great athlete. He's a great football, basketball, and lacrosse kid. He's got great hand-eye coordination. So to find a receiver that has his size, his speed, and his hand-eye coordination is just it's rare. And then to have him paired up with Alex Tesla, it's just to have 2 in the same year is just so rare. And they've been doing it for 3 years, and so I can't say enough about Cole, though. He's definitely got a ton of ability. They've both been extremely important on defense too. And then as far as Blaine goes, Blaine and Cooper Bartlett are leaders up front, and Blaine is, he's just a grown man, and it's nice to have have guys walk by your office and look like men every once in a while, and it's like, wow, he's one of ours. He's only 17. So it's nice to have that once in a while. We see that sometimes on other teams, and we're like, man, these guys are men, and that's Blaine. He's a grown man. He's strong. He's learned a lot. As a sophomore, he made a lot of mistakes, but we could see the ability. And then last year, he just kept getting better and better and better. He was our defensive MVP. He led the team in tackles for loss and sacks. And it's just rare to find somebody with his stature and speed, power, and then the ability to take coaching the way he has over the last couple of years. And now he's turning into a leader. These guys, they follow him up front as our fearless leader, and we hold him to a high expectation.
Final question, Coach, and it pertains to your Week 7 opponent, the Goffstown Grizzlies. What are you looking to take away from Goffstown, and just give me a little bit of an idea of what the game plan is without giving away all your secrets?
Well, we think Goffstown's probably one of, if not the best coach team in the state, with Justin Huff and the guys that he has on his staff. So they have our full attention, and he's got a great sized group. They're just big and strong. They're a little young, but they're strong and they're fearless. And I was telling my team that today. They're fearless. Like, they're young, but who walked in there week 1? Pinkerton, and they didn't fear them, and they knocked them off.
Right,
so they're not going to fear us in any way, nor should they. We've got to go out there and play our game. we've got to stop the run. I know a lot of spread teams get the rap that they want to throw it around, but Goffstown definitely wants to run the ball, and so we've got to stop the run. And they're stingy on defense, really stingy on defense. Tough, always tough kids, and they'll coach them up. They'll get them in the right places. They'll be sound. So we've definitely got to be on our game, and I think our guys will, will take and they have our full attention. And our guys will not go in there feeling good about themselves. They're 5-1. We're pretty much playing for the 1 seed. So we can't afford a loss, and I don't think Goffstown can either. So I expect it to be, a hard-fought game.
Coach, we appreciate it as usual. Good luck the rest of the way, and we'll catch up again soon. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, his coach, Jimmy Lozon, a class act. Really, it's got the Londonderry Lancers humming 2/3 of the way through the schedule.
He's been watching Belichick a lot because sounds a lot like no matter what, there's work to do. No matter 35-0 with running time just isn't good enough, and we got all kinds of problems, everything else. And but that's the kind of coach he is. He's always looking to get better. No different than a Coach Huff. We got some good coaches throughout the programs in New Hampshire.
Good young coaches
we're
too.
We're very, very lucky to have these young guys that really put together a game plan and make an enjoyable event.
It's especially with the sport under attack at the youth level. In some ways, it's good to have not necessarily new blood, because both Coach Lozon and Coach Huff have been at this a long time.
But they're
at
still
this
young.
point, but they're still They're still relatively young. And they're going to be here for a long time, presumably.
Nick, you bring up a great point. The amount of stuff that this game has had thrown at it, which I don't think anyone would argue. The minds of our young people are critical to protect and to manage. But I still say that this game done right is one of the best things for young men to be involved in, to develop them as human beings and give them an opportunity to learn how to manage the physicality and put together the mind and the body together, and really learn about themselves and learn sportsmanship, team unity, and the memories that these young men have the rest of their life really do last the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, as great as championships are, and they're worth striving for, the relationship these guys built with whether only one team in each division can win, but the memories that go on with all the teams and is just so important. This game is worth the journey.
It's the journey, not the destination.
And this game is worth it.
That's the saying there.
Yeah.
One other thing.
And refs are out there protecting these young men like never before. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, just one thing that Coach Lozon said that jumped out at me was the involvement of the alumni.
Yes.
And current St. Anselm quarterback Eric Fairweather, who had a heck of a game Saturday, by the way, and an upset win over New Haven. His involvement in the offseason with the program, with working alongside their quarterback, Jake McEachern, is, as a coach, a great weapon to have, so to speak, and obviously it's paid dividends.
Well, he's building culture over there, and that's something that everybody knew that Londonderry has tremendous talent over there, and great students and athletes and so on and so forth. Now they've got a secure, what appears to be a very secure coaching staff that's building culture, and I don't see it leaving anytime soon. No different than Coach Huff is doing with the younger program. But again, both of these programs have good feeder programs as well, and that's really helpful to have the numbers of young fellows coming out, that they both have got it going on. But that's going to be an interesting game this week. I really believe Coach Lozon, he's taken Goffstown very serious. I think all that respect that he was verbalizing is what he feels inside, and he knows he's got to have his guys come ready and be careful, because Coach Huff brings an awesome game plan every week.
Yep. Can never underestimate the Grizzlies, no matter who the opponent is.
Nope.
All right, some housekeeping notes. The fact that Bedford and Salem was rescheduled for Saturday throws a little bit of a hitch in our plan, so we will put our heads together and figure out exactly where we will be on Friday night for the Week 7 Friday Night Lights New Hampshire game of the week. You can monitor us online on our Facebook page, facebook.com/FNLNH. Again, facebook.com/FNLNH. We are now up and running on YouTube as well. That'll be the home for
Full
our
1080.
live stream. Yep, at 1080
HD.
That is that can be found as well at FNLNH Media on YouTube. Again, YouTube FNLNH Media, and of course follow us on Twitter as well for links in scores. That is at FNLNH1. Again on Twitter at FNLNH1. Today's broadcast of FNL Rewind is brought to you by Beals Insurance Agencies, locations in both Bedford and Londonderry. Whether you need home, auto, or business insurance, Beals Insurance will get you both the price and quality coverage that's right for you. Call this man right here, Steve, at 603-471-9999 today, or visit them online at Beals Insurance Agency, or Beals Insurance, I should say, .com. Again, that's BealsInsurance.com. Steve, final thoughts before we say goodbye.
Yeah, a couple things. Look on, as you said, the Twitter. We just got an Instagram page, FNLNH Media.
Yep.
Just go on for Instagram for you millennials. I wouldn't know how to use it, but I know that they do. So you can check out all of, Nick makes a prediction every week, or the directive of which game we're going to go at, and tries to find a competitive game for us to go cover every single week. Also on YouTube, please, it would be wonderful if you like what we're doing. Go on and subscribe on our YouTube, FNLNH Media. Just do a quick Google search on that. It'll come right up. Not to be confused with the Owl. We have the Friday Night Lights New Hampshire. That's what you want to go. And please subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell icon. That way you'll get any notification when any of our stuff is uploaded if you weren't able to see it live.
Yeah, a lot of stuff in the works as well over the next 10 to 12 months, so bear with us. We'll get you there, no doubt, in the end. All right, I want to thank Roger Brown of the New Hampshire Union Leader and of NHFootballReport.com. Good stuff as always. And Coach Lozon taking some time out with us as well following Londonderry's walkthrough. The Lancer head coach is always appreciated. All right, we'll see you on Friday. Have a good week and be safe, everybody. Thank you.